Fired up.
Fired up.
Top of the morning. And welcome to MJD Top of the World podcast this morning. Your host, Marlon, aka Mayhem, my partner in crime, JD Wilson.
Yes, I go by my nickname, JD.
JD. Happy Friday, brother.
Yeah, TGIF. Have you noticed I'm on top of the world?
I have noticed that. Commiserate with our podcast name.
So true.
I'm on top of Seattle today, specifically the Space Needle. I'm coming to you live from top of the Space Needle.
Okay. All right. So let's go to the big board here. You sent Rex Chapman, right?
My man Rex.
And he posted a Bob Costas
interview on CNN.
All right.
Talking about the Republican Party and Trump.
And then just before we went on air, we had a disagreement.
Yes.
Which, if anybody were watching, they would know that we agree in principle and disagree on other stuff.
Yes.
So, and what Costas was saying is that Republicans are afraid of Trump.
High level, what Costas is saying is that party has become a cult. True. It is a clown show. True. Conservatives like John McCain, rest his soul, Mitt Romney, have acquiesced to complete and utter lunacy. True. The reason for doing that, in part, Costas believes, is because real conservatives are afraid of Trump. And I 100% agree with that. 100%. They are afraid of him. They are afraid of him and his base and what the retributions from his base. And nothing makes you more pathetic than that. Because let me give a disclaimer to our 4, 5, 6, whatever listeners. Marlon Taylor ain't afraid of jack shit. I'm over 60 years old. I ain't afraid of nothing. Not even dying, because I've lived, as you know, I've said to you many times, I've lived, I'll be, 64 this year? I've lived 84 years in a 64-year-old body. I'm not afraid of anything, especially speaking the truth. And nothing to me is more pathetic than people who are fearful of retribution of MAGAs and therefore go along to hold their perceived seat in power. Bob Costas is 100% correct.
All right.
I know you and I disagree on that. So
no. Hold on. Let's be clear what we agree on. And it's really a fine-tuning thing. So it's like we're both materially agreed on the following. It's behaving like a cult.
No. Not behaving like a cult. They are a cult.
I'm okay with that. So I'll agree with that. It's a clown show.
Yes.
Okay. Here's where I see it differently. I don't feel differently about it, but I see it differently.
Okay.
And I swear to God, we're gonna get this out. It's gonna come out somehow. It's gonna make sense someday because we've been over this and over this.
We have.
And yet it doesn't. It eludes capture. It's like a firefly. You can't catch it.
You can't catch it. Right.
All right. So cult clown show.
Yep.
And
lunacy.
What I was saying was that they're afraid of Trump. And this is where I said I see that differently. And I never grow weary of this subject because we've never actually got arms around it. I am still of the opinion that if somebody else like Trump had come along, they would have been the chosen one. Now, Trump, to his credit, not on purpose, but to his credit, he's one of a kind. And when I say
Yes,
one of a kind, that
yes.
particular combination, there are other pretenders. There are people who want to, like, you know, like a cover band. They want to play his songs,
To Satan.
but they don't sound the same. So this is where I don't completely agree with what Bob Costas said. He said that they're worried about Trump pushing back on them. And I think they're individually worried about what you just said. And I wrote it down when you said it. So this is a quote unquote retribution from their base.
Yep.
So I see these as two distinct entities. I see Trump as a phenomena, a spark, a flash. I see the base as the constant. So Trump is the variable, the base is the constant. And what you and I go over and over again and are unable to articulate and put into words, or at least I'm unable to do it, is I believe that the characteristics of the base that we are contending with today are not any different than they have been for the past 200 years, or 240 or 360. Whenever they first ran away from England, whenever we first ran away from England to avoid persecution, whenever we stopped accepting taxes, whenever we, half the country brought in slaves to do all of their work, that is the constant. So Trump is the variable, and if it hadn't been him, it would have been somebody else. And if he hadn't come along, this is where Trump is so important. If Trump hadn't been available in the 2016 round, he couldn't have been selected if he hadn't been available. Does that make sense?
Here's what I'm struggling with.
Okay.
He is one of a kind.
So we've agreed on that.
So I don't know that we get to where we are without him.
That's what I just said. If he hadn't been available in 2016, we wouldn't be seeing all of this. It's like looking through we're looking through the proper end of the telescope. So this has always been there, but the way things work, we've been looking through the wrong end of the telescope.
Right.
It all looks smaller because it wasn't in your face. Well, Trump flipped the telescope around, and now we're really seeing cells.
But that doesn't change the fact that they are unwilling to speak truth because they are afraid of him. And
no, they're not afraid of him. They are speaking their truth.
No.
I'm telling you that.
You know why I disagree with that notion?
Okay.
And why I agree with Bob Costas. The 2016 debate showed exactly how cowardly they are and how much afraid. Let me tell you something, man.
See, what you're treating as cowardice.
If we're on a debate stage, and you make a disparaging comment to me about my significant other, we're going to have to go to fucking commercial. Okay? Because there's going to be furniture moving on stage when we go to commercial.
All right, that is not at the political level. In other words, that's just him being rude and ignoring norms. He's ignoring norms when he does that.
Not talking about him. I'm talking about them and how they reacted to him. We're going to have to go to commercial when you make it personal, because I'm not afraid of you. So when you make it personal,
I'm going to challenge you on this. Why are we talking about you? You mean Ted Cruz? You're saying that if you were Ted Cruz, why are you saying if I was Ted Cruz? There's no, that's a dead end. So what? If you were Ted Cruz, there wouldn't be.
But that's an example of being afraid of this petulant punk. That's an example.
Afraid of Trump.
Then why didn't he speak up? Why didn't he? What is he that flaccid? You're gonna
That's
insult
not
me?
what's going on. It's It's not that they're.
So if I assault Ann, if I say disparaging things.
No, you can't use us as examples. We don't fit into this. You can't do a replacement and say, if Marlon were on stage with Trump and Trump insulted Marlon's significant other, Marlon would be all over him. Well, that's fine, but it has nothing to do with what has happened. It has nothing to do with history. The question is, why didn't he come after him? Why?
I just told you.
You're saying it's because he's scared.
Yes.
And I'm saying, I don't agree with that.
Why don't you agree with that?
All right. Thank you for that. Thank you for that segue. I don't agree with that, Marlon, because I believe that while Cruz is on that stage in real time under the hot lights, his tiny little reptilian brain is doing calculate, 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 calculate. It's going through and it's running all of the numbers for his constituency in Texas. Bear with me.
All right.
And he is taking what he knows better than we do about his constituents because they're honest with him. So when he goes to a buffet or he goes to a fundraiser or he goes to some type of event, these people are coming up to him and they are revealing the secrets of their soul, most of which are ugly. They want things to change. They want to get rid of people of color. They want to abrogate the rights of others. Let me finish my thought. Let me finish my thought.
Okay.
So Cruz is afraid of going against his own base. Now, if you're going to say that he's afraid of being branded by Trump, I'm going to agree with that. But the fear is larger than just Trump. It is larger than just Trump. It is his own base. Now, let's talk a little bit about human history. The problem throughout history has not been just the people who go out and abrogate the rights of others and shoot other people with guns. It's the ones who sit silent. And that is not unique to any party or any race or any species or any sex. What's going on in the Republican Party is you have the silent majority, which is not saying anything.
Why?
Because they're ambivalent. And what they're ambivalent about is whether people are disenfranchised on their behalf.
They don't care about that. They don't care about that.
I'm coming back.
They don't care about that, dude. Technical difficulty. We'll be rejoining in a moment.
All right, I'm back.
Yeah, you're back. I don't agree at all. I don't agree. All right,
so I'm going to ask you a favor before you rebut or discuss. Just do me a favor. Did anything that whether you agree with it or not, does anything that I'm saying make any sense?
No. One, and let me tell you why. For one, you said it at the outset of what you just said. Ted Cruz's little marble-sized, feeble freaking brain can't think that he doesn't possess thought patterns quick enough to do what you just outlined on that debate stage.
No, I'm thinking he's an intelligent person.
No, he is not. His
calculation was do not push back.
I do not view him as intelligent. I'm sorry.
Well, you know, that's literally the missing link in your understanding of all of this. You're just assuming that all of these people we don't like are stupid.
No.
Ignorant?
I think some of them are evil. I think some of them are ignorant.
I'm okay with evil in the sense that I think some of the stuff they're doing is evil. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Not some, a lot.
A lot.
Ted Cruz is despicable. He's a deplorable. And that's just full stop there. But again, if you attack me and you make it personal, debate aside, I'm going to stand up for me. I'm going to stand up for my wife.
I know you are. That's still a meaningless statement. It doesn't move us closer to
Why
understanding
didn't
what's going
he
on.
do it? Why didn't he and other Republicans, Marco Rubio,
I
little
just
Marco?
told you. He calculated that it was not in his best interest to push back
Because he is afraid of retribution
from
to
his
that,
base,
which is MAGA.
from his constituency. Yes.
Which
Now,
is
it's
MAGA.
conveniently identified as MAGA, but it existed before Trump existed.
Yes, but it wasn't mainstream. It was back room.
We are completely agreed.
He brought it into the main. He took the
Flip the
toothpaste.
telescope around, and now we're
Yes.
seeing it in full. In all
He took the toothpaste out of the tube.
the toothpaste attitude, flipped telescope around. Whatever analogy you want to draw, his arrival was roughly. You're going to shoot me on this one. You're not going to like this one. His arrival was roughly like the arrival of a Messiah. I'm just going to say a Messiah, not the Messiah. He became the chosen one, the one who said the things that meant that actually talked to people and they felt like they could support.
He became Jim Jones. The only thing I've said ad nauseum, the only thing missing here is the purple Kool-Aid. That's it.
That's good.
It's true. Okay, I've exasperated enough. Tramp.
Well, we agreed again. We're materially agreed. I think if you were doing like a pie chart, I would just give more to the base than to Trump. Trump is a lesser part of my pie chart.
And again, not a fair equation, but if you're going to debate Marlon on something and you take it personal and you attack me or my loved ones, we're going to have to go to commercial. I don't give a damn about base. I don't give a damn about position and power. When you make it personal to me, we're going to have a problem.
I think most people who do not have to satisfy a base to get them to vote for them would probably have that same reaction.
Yes.
So
yes.
I'm saying that Cruz is making a calculation, and his calculation is let it ride. Because he's not going to lose his wife. I mean, he's like, maybe he would have done something different if he really thought his wife was going to leave him.
You're giving him far more credit than I ever would. So
I'm giving him credit for being a sentient being and arriving at a conclusion. And he is still the senator from Texas.
Which is far more credit than I would give him.
Well, he beat Beto, what's his name, O'Rourke?
Yes.
By a razor thin margin. So whatever calculation he made, it was the proper one.
This time.
That's a fair statement. That time he made the proper calculation.
Did he make the proper calculation while Texans were freezing to go to Cancun?
None of that affects me. In other words, I don't bring any of those.
It affected the people of Texas.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that if I'm trying to figure something out, I don't take the individual personal foibles of individuals into account. Some people
Why not?
Because it doesn't materially affect anything. If I'm going to judge,
yes, it does.
If I'm going to judge Cruz, I'm going to judge him as a senator.
No,
I'm not interested in his personality.
That is the fucking problem. That is the problem right there. That is the problem.
You identified the problem?
I get anime, and I'm going to use this quote. Maya Angelou. People are who they are the first time they show you.
That's right. So he's who he is. That's fine. I don't factor that into explaining what's going on.
You need to factor it in as a voter. Because that shows to you.
The voters don't give a shit. They would much rather. No, listen. Voters would much rather see.
Let me get this out. It shows you, the voter, what Marlon has been screaming. That demonstration, illustration, that behavior, that glimpse in shows you and should tell you, if you had something other than a pea brain, MAGA brain, that this individual does not have your welfare at his interest.
He does have their welfare at
No,
heart.
he
He
doesn't.
wants to disenfranchise people who are not white. That's what he wants to do.
Well, that'll get you 38%.
That's exactly right. And that is his calculation. So the first challenge for him is to get through the primary. You literally cannot.
Which he didn't do.
Well, of course he got through the primary. Yeah, oh, I'm talking about in Texas. All of his calculations were for Texas. He knew he was not going to win the presidency.
Well, he's going to get voted out in the next term. I can tell you that.
I have absolutely no.
Although Texas, let me step back, because Texas, I'd be happy. Move my Cowboys to Arkansas, where Jerry's from, and then let Texas fucking succeed into Mexico. I'm fine with that.
Well, here's the drill. Texas has a Republican governor, a Republican legislature, right?
Yep.
And I believe it's Cornyn and Cruz. Is Cornyn the other one?
I think Cornyn is the other one.
I don't know, but I believe it's a trifecta. It's Republican, Republican, Republican.
Yeah.
So they're devoting, the attorney general is absolutely horrific. And he's devoting all of his time and energy to making sure that people cannot vote.
Yep.
This is on top of gerrymandering.
Yep.
This is on top of the courts throwing out ballots.
Yep.
So when you say he's not going to be reelected.
Yeah, I step back from that one because of what they're doing.
So these are all calculations, and they're right at the margin. So that's why he did not push back on Trump, because he's like, my constituency favors Trump. He didn't say, I'm afraid of Trump personally. He said,
he would never
my
say that.
constituency listens to Trump. So you could say he's afraid of Trump personally. I would say he's afraid essentially of the entire decision tree that is in that party. And the reason it's happening is because the majority of them are ambivalent. They're like, well, you know, if people get disenfranchised and I put up with any trans or LGBTQ crap, that would be fine with me. They're not out marching. They're not out being rude to people, but they're sitting back and saying, how is this going to turn out? We see this everywhere. There are countries like Hungary was clearly aligned with Russia until it became clear that Russia is going to get spanked. And now they're like, no, okay. Russia's a trading partner, but we really are aligned with the West. So all of these decisions are constantly being made by every single human being. And somebody who's not running for office has the privilege of not having to reveal themselves. They can be like, I kind of wish for those things, but I wouldn't go out of my way to disenfranchise somebody. But if I can keep my neighborhood primarily white, you know, just by voting for this, I don't have to be aggressive. I can just be passive, and I'll kind of get what I want. That's what's going on right now. Those are calculations being made by these people who are this vein has been there since the founding of the republic.
38% is not 62%.
You keep going to 38%, but the thing about the 38% is those are the ones who support MAGA. There are a lot of independents. In fact, party affiliation is deteriorating. People are moving into the independents.
Yes.
Within the independents, you still have conservatives. In other words, simply by declaring that you're no longer a Republican or a Democrat, it doesn't change your worldview.
No.
So independents now comprise a larger group, and within that group, you have conservatives. And those conservatives would be making calculations about their local, regional, state, national government.
They're conservative, but unlikely to be MAGA.
I'm going to mute for a second.
All right.
And the reason I'm going to mute for a second is because I have to sneeze. Hold on.
All right. Thought the doorbell was ringing or something like that. Bless you.
I think I'm over it. I'm not sure.
Bless you.
The reason I'm looking down is because I have my controls are under I can't.
Conservative isn't necessarily MAGA. And so back to MAGA is identifiable easily. In fact, I saw something yesterday that I
Agreed.
absolutely loved. The new, and I believe in this, and I am all on board with this. The new MAGA hat is the blue check. I'm 100% aligned with that.
I
And
love
for
that.
those that don't know, and we talked yesterday briefly about the petulant child known as Musk. I've been very vocal about what he can do with that blue check. In fact, I've tweeted a couple of times where he can stick that blue check.
Now, did you make your profile image a blue check?
Yes, I did.
You showed that to me, and I was like, at first I didn't get it, but then I was like, I think I understand what's going on here.
Yes. And because it's family hour, I'll just leave it there. Oh man, oh God. My parents are rolling over in their grave. I know they are.
Well, we talked about going through and looking at this. DeSantis wants to make America Florida.
Do we have to?
No, but
to Satan is just.
It's a good compendium.
I'll be glad when he's gone too. It's going to be hard for me to say this.
Okay.
But I think Marjorie Taylor Greene, the DC pipe bomber, also known as, I think she was on to something. And from the pandemic that I've been a supporter of this.
Secession.
That we need to ring fence the red states and leave them to themselves. And Florida would be in there.
Well, isn't that already happening? We don't even have to formalize it. It's already happening.
Pretty much, yes. Although, with that said, I love what Disney is doing.
What are they doing? Yeah, I haven't been following that.
Disney's playing chess. DeSantis is playing checkers. That's
really?
The best way I can describe it.
Well, what's going on there?
He's trying to turn Disney into what he thinks his view of America should be.
It was already fairly close to that.
And Disney is saying, here's the middle finger. We are going to do what we want to do.
Well, Disney has something DeSantis doesn't. Longevity.
Yes. Yes.
At the rate DeSantis is going, he's going to start chewing into his support with independents and the silent majority, which is like, I'm just going to sit on my hands and wait to see how this turns out. And they're going to be like, my kids are stupider.
Right.
The kids are in danger.
Right.
I mean,
right.
My kids can't go to Disney anymore.
Right.
So he's actually perilously close to shaving off some of his support in that silent majority. Yep. Now the question is Hispanics. What is he going? How's he going to?
How they support him is beyond me, but I'll leave that for Hispanics to answer to themselves.
So yeah, Disney has a much higher probability of being around in the year 2525. Wasn't that the song? In the year 2525. I feel like that was the date. So that would be coming up in a couple of years, and Disney will be there.
Yeah, they will.
Yeah, even if you were to...
As will Bud Light. As will Coors Light. As will Nike. We can keep going. They're all going to be here.
Okay, I saw something. I wrote this down. There was a woman on Alex Wagner last night. I didn't watch it in real time, but she did about a 10-minute session, and I was able to watch half of it. And she is a state representative in the Michigan legislature. and she came to prominence when she was attacked, and then she pushed back. So basically her signature became a Democrat pushing back on nonsensical Republican stuff.
The cult.
But she pointed out, she said, you know, there are 10 million human beings in Michigan. And I don't know if this is true or not, but I wouldn't be surprised if it were true. More importantly, I think it's representative. I'm sure even if the numbers aren't precise, they're representative. And she said, out of 10 million people in Michigan, only 2 kids a year request an exception for school athletics. Only 2 trans kids a year are requesting exceptions for school athletics. And then they showed a statistic which was less than 5% voted on transgender. In other words, that they didn't care. Now, so that's actually that 5% is statistically significant considering you only have 2 kids a year.
Right.
But I thought that was fascinating, and what made it valuable was her discussion about kind of what I'm doing, which is a little bit mathematical. Like if you do the math is kind of not, it's not holding up. And as you know, I would prefer that transgender in product placement just not be a factor. And this is why, because there are so few people for whom it's an issue. And
because they're afraid to speak up and out.
No. I'm going back to the calculation thing. We're talking about right at the edge. And you were saying yesterday, you're like, I don't really support Elon Musk putting all that money into a Starship when we could be helping kids and feeding hungry people and building affordable housing. So I'm going to use that logic with you. I don't know why we keep going to this. And this is where I would have the libtard thing. It's like, just leave it be. Just let it go. Don't worry about it.
They're marginalized and disenfranchised. That's why we can't leave it be. Whether or not you think trannies should be playing sports, to me, as I've said to my better half,
I don't think we should die on that hill as a party.
It is irrelevant. Whatever they
It is relevant. It's a mathematical problem.
Whatever they are, they're human.
And they will remain human.
They're human. And as a human, they have rights. I don't know why you don't know why we are choosing to die on this hill. I don't know why.
No. The rights of the few should not abrogate the rights of the many.
They're human.
Hey, we do it in boxing. If you're a heavyweight, you don't fight in the flyweight. It's just the way it is. We do it in wrestling.
Every sentient human being has rights. They're human.
I see it exactly the way you do. They're human, but I think we need to do the math.
There's no
and some things
there's no math, there's no
not become a focal point for policies. They should just exist and be resolved at the local level.
But they can't, because they're disenfranchised.
To me, participating in youth sports is not disenfranchisement. In other words, a lot of kids choose not to do that, and they go into the arts or they go into theater.
Sports is so far down the list of their disenfranchisement.
But that's what keeps occupying everybody's attention. And I'm suggesting we just let it ride and not sacrifice so many other important points on this one.
So let sports go. Let them getting the shit beat out of them go. We can let that go too, right? Let's just let all that
Hold
go.
on. Wait.
Bully.
You just added that in. So we'll let sports go. We'll let them getting the shit beat out of them go. Nobody said that, and nobody's representing that. And do you know why?
Why?
Because no human being should be getting the shit beat out of them. That stands alone. That is a major issue, not a minor issue.
It's part of their disenfranchisement. They're being targeted, they're being assaulted, they're being bullied, they're being
And-
blocked from bathrooms.
And every effort should be made to protect every single human being. I don't think that applies at the edge where you have a very small number of people who are trying to change the behaviors of something that protects the rights of everybody else. I don't think that's a good use of our time. So I would be all for aggressively protecting every single human being.
Right.
But to me, the trans in sports thing doesn't rise to that level. Mathematically, it just doesn't make sense for us to be devoting all of our time and energy to that. Us being
I'm going to acquiesce here because sports, trannies in sports is so, and this is what I said to my better half, who said, I don't think it's right that a guy should play in a female sport. Now,
okay, so I agree with that.
It is so far from what is important and what is happening to women. The focus, to your point.
Yeah, so let's go focus on that.
No, it should. I mean, that shouldn't.
You can't say what is happening to women and include trans in that.
Yeah, you can.
No, you can't.
Because women are bringing that up.
No.
And I'm like my better half. I don't think it's right. And I'm like, look, do you understand what's happening to your rights? That's so far down on the priority list. Who cares whether or not a tranny can use the bathroom? Who cares whether or not a tranny can play volleyball? You need to think higher level about what's happening.
Are you making my point for me?
Let me make this point.
I think we're in complete agreement here.
If people don't wake the F up, they're going to
Everybody's awake.
No, they're not.
Yes, they are. You keep
not.
thinking that people, if they had information, would change their behaviors. I'm saying you do have low information people, but that's by choice. And I'm saying everybody's picking their own lane. I'm saying everybody is doing what they want. And that if you don't recognize that, it really hamstrings your ability to make any progress.
And
people are doing what they want.
And my response to that is you should be focused on what truly matters. And what truly matters,
but what truly matters to us doesn't matter to other people.
What truly matters, if you're a woman, is a list of things that trannies playing volleyball are so far down the list.
You just agreed with me. We're in agreement.
Ridiculous.
We're in agreement. So how did this go with your significant other? Did you guys resolve everything and get it all figured out?
She didn't like what I had to say, of course, which was you need to be focused on the fact that they are literally stripping your rights away from you in front of your face. And so
not in Washington State, they're not.
No, not in what, thank you. Not in Washington State. Very proud. I tweeted that this week because Governor Inslee, one of the best governors in the country, in my opinion, who understands climate change is not a hoax. Governor Inslee signed and passed a weapons assault ban this week in the state of Washington. And I am so proud to be a resident of this state behind that.
You are fortunate. Now, I'm in Virginia.
Yeah.
And Virginia is.
Yeah.
Because.
They come out and put the finger up and, okay, the wind's blowing that way today.
That's what Youngkin's doing. Now, the thing is that Virginia is below the Mason-Dixon line, so it was part of the Confederacy.
Yes.
And then because of the proximity to the District of Columbia, you had an irrational amount of investment in real estate and businesses came in. So you have essentially in Virginia, you have all three. Once you go down past Fredericksburg, that seems to be the cutoff, and it's really pronounced past Petersburg. So you go into kind of a gray area between the Beltway around DC and Fredericksburg. And then in Fredericksburg, you're starting to see essentially the South, and then between there and Richmond and Petersburg, it just progressively more. So we've got the blue in Fairfax County. We've
Yep.
got the red in the rest of the state, which is not as densely populated. That's why it's even.
Prince William County.
And then our independents right now are the ones in Loudoun County. And in
Right.
Loudoun County, you have expatriates from Fairfax.
Yep.
And you have a smattering of, it's just a kind of down the middle. And so we have all three represented.
Which is funny because
almost regionally, and they vote reliably in Fairfax, Northern Virginia, and the southern part of the state. And Loudoun is the one that moves back and forth.
it's funny because when I lived in Loudoun County, and I lived in Loudoun County, I think for about 4 years, they were red. There was no mistaking about what they were. They were red.
Well,
So,
they flashed some blue when they had McAuliffe and
Yep.
his success for Kane.
Yep.
But then they dropped back to red with Youngkin.
Yes.
So I'm kind of on the cusp in terms of abortion and guns and all that stuff. We're vacillating right now.
Yeah, you are. Which is, again, you just said it, why I'm proud to reside in Washington State.
I live here because.
Do we have problems here? Hell yeah. Is Inslee getting blamed for wrongfully, in my opinion? And I've got a Twitter beef with a woman, and I'm not going to mention her name because she doesn't deserve the airtime. Who constantly attacks Inslee. And I think our governor, Jay Inslee, has a thankless job. He did what he had to do to save lives in the pandemic, during the pandemic. We did what we had to do. And that is now being used against him as being anti-business, anti-everything. I can't imagine the number of lives he saved by shutting down this state. We had to. And let's not forget, it started here.
Well, what was the huge mistake that was made? Have you put your finger on it yet?
That they think was made?
The whole COVID pandemic issue. What one thing could be changed and have a different outcome?
Oh, that's easy.
What?
Fox News.
All right. So
you laugh because you know I'm right.
Well, no, there's a lot more to it than that.
But it's in its simplest form, Fox News.
Okay, but I'm just saying.
Who said all the things about the mask? Who said all the things about Fauci? Who said all, when I say all the things, I'm talking about lies, about Fauci, about the vaccines, about masks, about social distancing, about shutting down, about sending people home.
There's an original sin, though. There was an original sin.
Which was
a calculation made by the Centers for Disease Control that there was not enough CPE to make sure that the hospitals kept running.
Yeah.
And also give everybody a mask. So that was the original sin, but the original sin was not based on ill intent. It was based on perception that the primary transmission method was tactile.
Right.
So those that misunderstanding, which is fair.
Misinformation.
No. These things become disinformation, but they start off as decisions. So the Centers for Disease Control had not understood at the outset that transmission was primarily airborne, and they calculated that they did not want to have all of the CPE consumed by panicked, the 330 million people who live in the United States.
Right.
And then the third one would have been the president saying, listen, you need to wear a mask because this is an airborne virus. But you can't depend on a Trump at a time like this. Now, you should want to depend on your president. You'd want to think that your president would be the kind of intellectual giant who would be like, okay, I'm looking at a lot of variables here. I also get better information than anybody else. Let's face it, he was getting the newest information. So there was a point at which the president of the United States, probably in the first 2-3 weeks, was beginning to be told by experts that it was airborne, and that if you wore a mask, it dramatically reduced the probability of infection. So you'd want your president to be able to do that, but unfortunately we had Trump for a president.
Who ignored and lied about it. Who did both. He ignored.
And he did it actually as a function of his personal ego. He did not like having a mask over his mug.
Right.
So he made it a
But
negative
part
experience.
of that original sin, and this is where I'm mad at the 330 million. You're listening to a buffoon.
Now hold it. I started with the Centers for Disease Control.
Okay.
So what they did is they handed all of this to Fox News and to Trump.
Right.
And they could go like, well, really, what's your advice? Is it wear a mask or not wear a mask? Just last week you were saying don't wear a mask. And at that point, the whole thing just started to collapse.
Granted, he is the president, and therefore you are thinking, one of the 330 million, that innately he has credibility in what he's about to tell me. But in that same
But it was
breath,
him. So that's unfortunately that was
breath, you 330 million, he's not a scientist. He's not a doctor.
You got to understand, people who were very smart about this were also very confused and making decisions that created huge problems.
I wasn't.
We would not have needed the vaccine if everybody started wearing a mask the day we heard about this.
Yes.
It would have been done. It would have been finished.
Yes. We would have rid ourselves of the virus.
Yes. Yeah, probably around July, approximately 4,000 people would have.
But because people were being misinformed, because people were being lied to.
But you've got to understand that a lot of the misinformation was based on mistakes made by the smartest people who were trying to do the right thing. There was only a very small window. There was a very small window to actually stop this thing at the border, so to speak.
Okay, but once we didn't, then we needed to take the corrective steps, which they did, which was 3 things. Get a vaccine, wear a mask, and stay 6 feet apart.
Okay, I'm okay with that. Now, let's go to what DeSantis did. DeSantis technically made a good decision by not honoring all of the COVID rules. He essentially had the same number of people die on a per capita basis as died in all the other red states where they shut down.
Okay, so how is that the right decision?
Because being pro-business and not shutting down, basically the same number of people died. He might have killed an additional 10,000 people, but
yeah, I don't think it's the same number. I don't think clearly the data shows red states had higher.
Yeah, red states. That's what I said. He was on a par with the standard red states where people refused to wear masks. So he said, most of my people are not going to wear masks anyway. So to hell with it. We're just going to keep businesses open. And then he derived from that. That was technically the proper decision for his constituency.
Who died?
The same people who would have died anyway, plus.
I don't know that they would have died anyway.
Oh, you're darn Skippy, they would have died anyway because they weren't going to wear the mask. And he just said, my constituency doesn't want to wear these masks, so I'm not going to enforce it. That was a good decision by Ron DeSantis. And part of the reason that his popularity rose. Because all the other MAGAs are looking at him.
At the cost of human lives? How is that a good decision?
Come on, it's not my life. What the hell do I care? I am primarily concerned with making the right calculation for my constituency.
Who
Nobody
died?
down there. What?
for my constituency who died, many of whom died.
It doesn't matter. They were going to die anyway because they weren't going to wear masks and they weren't going to follow rules.
But it's not a cult.
Oh, I didn't say it's not a cult. I'm just saying that I'm putting more emphasis on political calculation than I am on personality. That's all I'm saying. So when you look into this and you look at the mistakes that were made by well-meaning, knowledgeable people right at the outset of the pandemic, it set the stage for a lot of heartache.
Yes.
It really did.
Yes.
But it wasn't misinformation. It was wrong. There's a difference between misinformation and wrong.
Yes, it was both. There were both.
Like misinformation is I know something, but I'm going to tell you something else.
Which is?
Getting it wrong is based on everything that we can see. This is what we know. I'm telling you my truth. Well, your truth turned out to be wrong. Yeah, but I was at least telling you, I wasn't modifying the information. I just made we got a gambit and we failed.
Yeah, they were modifying the information. They said masks don't work.
No. When they came out at the beginning, that wasn't disinformation. Things that are subsequently proven to be wrong aren't disinformation. They're just the wrong conclusion. I don't blame the Centers for Disease Control and Fauci for trying to disinform.
No, not at all.
But they were wrong, and it took a long time to get right.
There might have been a miscalculation on the front end. I'm not going to argue that, but those that were getting the information and the example I give, and you just gave it. You just gave it at the outset. We would not have needed the vaccine if everybody wore a mask. They were saying masks don't work.
Yeah, but at the beginning, the CDC was not championing masks because they did not correctly find out. They didn't find out early that it's airborne.
Right.
So their primary objective was to retain what little CPE was there at that time.
Right.
It was generally dedicated to hospitals and health workers.
Right.
And as I recall, they had some thoughts around nursing homes and things like that. All of it just ran away. But if everybody had been able to wear a mask that had the proper characteristics, even if they had worn the bandanas, a bandana, if you look at the reason a mask is good is because the fibers are random.
Interwoven.
You use fabric, like if you cut up a t-shirt, the fibers are like this. So they have little windows that the virus could get to. Nonetheless, if you double or triple layer it in any way, shape, or form, it's still an improvement. So we had opportunities, we missed them.
Yes.
And the disinformation started and was fueled by the mistakes that were made at the outset. And what I'm saying is that if you look at these things as political calculations, after the point our president is not going to help, then as a governor, you're like, well, okay, what should I do here? I think DeSantis made the right decision for Florida. And I think he is personally responsible for only, I'm going to guess 8,000 to 12,000 deaths.
Oh, no, many more than that.
No, all of those other people would have died anyway because they weren't going to wear masks.
Yeah, but that's still that blood is on his hands, because if he would have said and done the right thing, maybe they would have.
But they're going to vote for him because they agreed that they weren't going to wear masks, and DeSantis.
Then that blood is on his hands.
Rights.
That blood is on his hands. That blood's on his hands.
No, the blood is on the hands of the people who elected him.
Yes.
Okay, so he's in that role. He's making a calculus. To me, DeSantis is actually a pretty good example of what we're up against.
Yes.
I think he is absolutely, totally focused on satisfying his people. And if you look back through history, this is a well-trod path.
Yes.
You elevate your people and you show them favor, and they actually become complicit in keeping you in power.
Yep.
because you are now getting them things they would not have gotten otherwise. In a democratic society, they're not going to get to carry their guns anywhere they want. They're not going to get it if they have a stinking Democrat in there. So at the point where he is aggressively making sure that this minority, which it is a minority,
Yep.
is getting what they want, he's going to get their full support, and then he's going to pick up other people who are ambivalent from the middle. So from a political calculus standpoint, you could predict what DeSantis is going to do. Like if you say, here's the next situation, you could say, okay, DeSantis is going to do this. And then you could say, I completely disagree with it. I don't like it. I wish he wouldn't do that, but you could still say he's going to do this.
Yes.
So if you're on the other side, you're actually in a very good position because you've identified a standard bearer who's going to do what you and your friends want.
And here's how I'm at peace with that.
At peace with
what you just said about Satan and what he's doing and the calculation of what he's going to do next. Here's how I'm at peace with that.
Okay.
When Florida's fucking underwater, we won't have to worry about it. We won't have to worry about them.
Yeah.
They'll be gone. They'll be gone. And I've got people in Florida.
Well, that's what I was saying about Disney. Disney's going to outlast DeSantis.
Yes. And our boy Tony Brown is in Florida, but he has a boat, so I know he'll just sail off to somewhere else.
He'll be fine.
Yes. The rest will be under fucking water, and good luck with that, as I always like to say. I'm done. I'm done, man. I'm done. I'm done trying to reach people. I'm done trying to teach people. I'm done trying to find common ground. I know Tony's trying to do that because he's running for office. I'm done. You can't find. Bob Costas said it best. They are a cult. You can't find common ground with a cult.
All right. So talking about calculus, do you realize that the calculus, the logic that you just used, is the exact same logic that God used when he brought the flood? He's like,
yes,
I can't fix this.
Yes. Start over.
Start over. You know what? What time is it?
We're at, we got off to a little bit of a delayed start by about 5 minutes, I think. So we're
But
right.
You know what? We're approaching an hour again.
Yes, quickly. See how time flies when you're having fun.
I know. I really enjoyed this. I don't know if anybody else cares, but I really enjoyed the dialogue, and we're actually in agreement. So I would be tempted, because it's Friday, to call this most excellent session.
Oh, I would agree with that 100%.
All right.
I would agree with that 100%. We got the weekend ahead of us. Not sure what it's like on the East Coast, but spring is not
gorgeous here today.
Spring has not arrived in Seattle, that's for sure.
I was out throwing the football with my stepdaughter.
Nice. Nicole.
Yes, it was magnificent. She's got a good arm.
I'm sure.
So we're working on her spiral.
I am going to do something unique for me today.
What's that?
When we conclude our podcast here in a couple of minutes,
okay,
I am going to take a mental health day for Marlon Taylor, which I rarely do.
All right. So you know how we're always karmatically and cosmically connected?
Yes.
After this,
yes.
I'm going to go hop in the convertible. I'm going to drive to Trader Joe's.
Ooh.
And I'm going to hang out in the freezer section looking at the appetizers. And I'm going to get a couple of fancy appetizers for my wife and I.
Pizza night.
Have together, because all we want to do is just be together this evening. And the boys have other plans, and Nicole is working. So she has asked me to go to Trader Joe's, pick out some fun stuff And
Nice.
I'm going to do exactly what you're doing for the rest of the day.
Yeah, and you know me, I rarely, I always
You're
preach
never
that.
off. You're
I
always
know,
on.
I know. I always preach that to people. Take time to yourself, mental health, blah blah blah. Yet I'm always kind of laser focused. And today, I'm like, you know what? It's Friday. I've got to go buy some birthday cards. Obviously,
Bless you, my son. Go take a time. Go
I've
take a
got to
day
go.
off.
I've got to go get birthday cards for my better half, who
Oh,
is going
that's
to
right.
go have sushi on her own today.
Oh,
Because
is
I'm
she
not a
gone
sushi.
already?
No, she's doing the nails thing. I can't. I just, I just nod and wave. Yes. Um, so I am going to shut her down early today. Um, Probably get to some things in the house that need to be gotten to. And then I know the NBA playoffs is in full swing. For those that don't know, for those that are not, I tell people all the time,
Did you say
because
NBA playoffs?
yes,
What NBA playoffs?
the National Basketball Association playoffs
Are
are
they at
in,
the end of the season already?
they are in full swing, dude. Where you been?
Do you want me to tell you what I'm doing?
I tell people all the time, man, y- because people don't appreciate things until after they're gone, right? That's a human nature. Uh,
I don't
uh,
think either of us is like that. I think we
no, we're
absolutely.
not. You and I aren't, but I know. And here's the example I was going to give with the NBA playoffs. Steph Curry is the greatest shooter ever produced. I don't know what gene pool conjured this dude up, but he is literally the greatest shooter that has ever laced up shoes and stepped on a basketball court.
Is he having a good year?
He is always having a good year.
Well,
Uh,
that's not true. I thought he was injured for a period of time there. I'm not disagreeing with you. You know better than I, but I would say points per game. What are his points per game?
he's high 20s still.
That's incredible.
And so to give you context, Draymond Green was suspended for an action in game 2. So
Quelle
game 3,
surprise.
game 3 was last night. They were down 0-2 to Sacramento, who is the surprise of the NBA season.
Okay.
And they are the surprise of the NBA season because they have the coach of the year, Mike Brown, who was an assistant on the Warrior staff. He was also a Laker coach for a while until we fired him. Mike Brown is a great coach, and he has Sacramento playing exceptional basketball. But Golden State won last night, much to the surprise, because Draymond Green, the straw who stirs the drink, was under a 1-game suspension, and Steph was Steph, and they were able to get the victory last night. So that is one of the most compelling series of all the matchups: Sacramento and Golden State.
Well, I think I'm going to turn ESPN back on. It turned off, and I haven't been back to it. But I'm going to do that and check in on the NBA playoffs. I really enjoy basketball. It's really interesting because I just don't seek these things out. When I intersect with them, I really enjoy them, but I don't seek them out.
It's basketball at a really, really high level right now.
Well, listen, enjoy the rest of the day.
I will.
And that was, I don't know. I don't know why we're recording these. They're just kind of like our normal existence.
I know, but we're sharing
It's still
that.
fun.
It's fun, and we're sharing it in hopes that somebody smiles, laughs, and gains a tiny pearl of wisdom.
You know, one thing it does do for us is it limits the amount of time we talk.
Yes. Yes. Otherwise, for those that don't know,
Yeah, it would just
we would be going for hours.
for hours. All right, bud. Well, listen,
Hey,
top of the world.
top of the world to you. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the appetizers. It's supposed to get to 60 next week, so I'll enjoy 46 degrees for today and cloudy and typical Seattle weather.
We're going up to 87 to 88.
Ooh, I don't miss that.
Yeah, gonna be hot.
Yeah.
All right, bud. Have a
Be
good
of
one.
good cheer, my friend. Have a great weekend, everyone out there. All 6 of you.
Bye.
Ciao.